What piece is the most important in an attack in chess? You may say the queen. It controls the most amount of squares and is the easiest to checkmate with. Or you may say
The rook!
because of this guy. Or you may say the king because a good offense is a good defense and you need to defend the king. But all of those are wrong. Mostly. The king argument is arguable. You could say that because, without the king, you kind of lose. But the most important piece when leading an attack is the pawn. You may think the pawn is useless because it's valued at 1 when all the other pieces are valued at 3 or more. But there is a reason it's not valued at 0. It has its use, and it's a very important one, in my opinion. But now you're thinking, oh yeah, because you can promote it to a queen. No. Just because you can promote it to something that's better doesn't mean you have to. And that's not the pawn's greatest ability. The pawn's greatest ability is its brutality. The pawn is always willing to sacrifice itself. That's the great thing about the pawn. It will go in and it will die for you. Just so you can bring everyone else, maybe open up the position and bring everything into that attack. The pawn is the trailblazer of chess. It is the one that is ready to take anything, to open up, to do anything to help you. The pawn is the most forgotten chess piece to newer players, but the more you use it, the better you will get. And once you have mastered it, you'll be a greatly improved player compared to what you were before. That using pawn charges is how you'll get that edge on your opponents to win more games and up your elo. So I'm going to use as an example one of my recent games. And this game, I am playing as white and black is just castled. I start off by going with h3. What does h3 do? h3 is not an outstanding move by itself. You see it, it's not really doing much. Even though I say pawn charge is so amazing, this doesn't look like a big pawn charge. But what it does do is it enables g4. It enables that because the g4 square is under threat by both the bishop and the knight. And some people I've seen at my level straight up play g4. Don't even bother to defend it, and they immediately lose that pawn, and your attack's over. Because the g-file pawn is very important because it will open up the h or f file. It is a very important pawn. So I go play h3, enabling g4. They're trying to attack my bishop, and I go and just defend it. Another important thing about pawns are pawn structure. Having tripled up pawns is not good. It's not a good thing to have. So what I'm trying to do here is, even though it looks the same amount defended, if he takes and we trade, my pawn structure is all of a sudden good again. I have a good line of pawns. It's a normal line of pawns. So he doesn't take, he goes and tries to defend this, which is fine. It's maybe trying to open it up for a knight or something. I don't know what the idea behind that is. I go with g4. What does this do? It threatens g5. g5 is very deadly because even if the h6 pawn can take, you still have this bishop coming in and he can trade off pieces, open up the king, knight goes around there and allows the queen to come in and the position is lost. So what does he do to respond? He wants to trade off the bishops. He is applying pressure to this bishop. And it's no problem because if you look at it, it's fairly well defended. So I go ahead and play g5. The first loss of a pawn, the first sacrifice, not really a sacrifice, but the first attack used as a pawn. And this is why pawns are so helpful, because h file is now open. Black has no use nothing in the H file to stop that rook. It controls the H file now, though it is blocked by the pawn. So usually, one of the reasons why the pawn charges are so effective is because one of the points of the pawn charges is to lose them, so it opens it up for everyone else. The knight drops back. He's trying to attack the bishop and prevent me from trading off here. And even if this knight was not here, let's say, just straight sacrificing the bishop is a decent move, in my opinion, because you immediately bring the rook in. That the king is under heavy threat. You know, you bring the knight into here, and the queen goes in there, and you have a checkmate soon. Sacrificing the bishop to open up pawns is also a way to go. That's why bishops and knights are also valuable. But I instead retreat the bishop because the knight is defending that square. They are defending that, and they decide to retreat for no apparent reason. And I go and I'm trying to, just attack everything here. I'm just trying to get a attack going, trying to trade off these pieces, trying to get the bishop in, trying to get the rook in, stuff like that. They go and with their trade of their own, they trade off the bishop, and they're going for their own pawn charge. They are trying to infiltrate the position. They want me to do that. They want to open up their knight or open up the queen by sacrificing their knight, not necessarily, but they could sacrifice their knight. Sacrificing their knight is a possible move to allow queen c6 because that is a check and is an infiltration of the position. So that's one of the things that a5 enables, is just this attack that could go in. You could even take with a rook. A lot of things are possible once you play a5. So they do that. It is considered a mistake. I don't know what my response should have been. I traded off the knights. And Stockfish says that a5 over here is a mistake. I don't think it's that bad. At least at my level. So I do end up trading off the knights, force the king back in this dome. I try to create a attack on this pawn, so maybe I could bring the bishop in, because if I do attack the pawn, since this pawn is pinned, it will not be able to take the bishop, and there are a couple threats there. So he goes and he is going to a discovered attack of my queen. Apparently this was a blunder, because I could sacrifice my rook, I think, and then bring in the other rook for mate in a couple. I don't see that. I see, ooh, queen is attacking me. My queen is undefended. I should run back. So I do. I run back. I try to create what is called a battery. A battery on this position. I am threatening checkmate. So how do they prevent checkmate? They go and defend it. Good move. So, what is the ways that I could infiltrate this pawn and try to get in there and destroy its structure? I could come in with the bishop. Yeah. But the problem with that is, I come in with the bishop, I could do that. Yeah, but there's nothing forcing him to take. Yes, it's opened up the position. I can now have a couple discovered checks, so be a little fancy, do something like that. I could, do that, and I could also just straight up lose my queen if I wanted to, because even though I have the rook there and they can go wherever they need to go here to defend against that, there's not really a move once you've done that with a bishop. Thing is, who could do that just as well? A pawn. A pawn can go in and just attack that other pawn. Because if you lose it and you ending up in an endgame, you're not going to be down a queen or down a bishop or down a rook. You're down a pawn. That's not that bad. It's not that bad of a situation. So I go and I'm trying to push that pawn. I want that pawn to go as far as possible. But then they're pushing this pawn. They're trying to open up the position. They want to do that. They want this trade. They really want that trade. Because guess what? That attacks my rook. Though it doesn't directly attack my rook, it also attacks that pawn. It attacks a lot of things and is very dangerous. So in response to that, is, this is one way to defend. Just push the pawn. You don't have to take and open up the position. Just push it. You don't even have to defend the pawn. You just push the pawn, and if there's no threat on the pawn now, you have no problems. So they go and they're trying to trade off. They're trying to open up the position. They need to open up the position to create some counterplay. You know what I do? I create my own counterplay. Counterattack, go and attack. I go and try to infiltrate the position. I am even threatening a check, which, even if this check doesn't look that harmful, and they take back, my rook is now in play. They are forced back here. I can bring in the other rook too. I have allowed so much for myself, and that's a deadly threat. I could also just straight up take there. That's fine too. Because if they do take back with the rook, they get checkmated. It's fine. But what they end up doing is they push the pawn. That's how you defend against it. And no, if you're wondering, I cannot take this. Why? Because the knight's defending it. So if you were dumb enough to think that, I don't know. So what do? I go and just straight sacrifice of that pawn. He can take two ways. He can do that, or which allows this with a check, and then coming up soon is some infiltration, and it's not great for him. Or he can take with a rook, which seems better, but there is still an infiltration here. There's still a check. And after that happens, a reasonable move to do is either try to trade off the queens or rook, and just use the rook to defend it. What ends up happening is he moves his king, which is definitely a mistake here. I want to trade off these rooks. Why? Because eventual checkmate is threatened if we trade off these rooks. He goes, we trade off, and after he takes this pawn, thinking, you know what, I'm going to open up this position, I'm going to finally get in, I get mate in 4. And that's it. That's why pawn charges are so valuable. Because if you go all the way back here, it all started because of 2 pawns who decided to make a run for it. This pawn, he had cleared up the H-file. And this pawn, over here, what he did is he removed a defender of this square. Not exactly a defender, but a blocker of that square. This is why pawn charges are so useful. So here is another game I will be using as a example, for this time is how to defend against it. And my opponent here did very well at defending here. And they understood the very simple thing is, if I attack you with a pawn, just push the pawn that's getting attacked. Don't question this position for one, because I'm playing a new opening. I was trying to play the London system, and it did not go well. I forgot to bring out my bishop. Didn't go great. But either way, they have just castled, and you'd think eventually I'm going to do a pawn charge, but they start a pawn charge of their own. They're trying to enable this, even though it was already enabled. I castle. They're trying to threaten my knight, and even potentially this pawn. I go, and I defend my knight, I want to keep this centralized knight. Centralized knights are good. They're trying to trade off here. I end up pushing, trying to kick this knight, but this knight just decides, you know what, let's trade. Trading's fine. They go, they're attacking my knight. I defend it with a pawn. And this is my mistake here, is they can now do this. That's a big threat because it's technically not a fork, but it's a good attack. I ignore it because I didn't see it, and I go try to do my own pawn charge, try to go and infiltrate their position. Attack this. Just go in that line. They go, they try to technically not fork, but kind of fork. And what the fork actually is, which I didn't see, is just taking this pawn. And, they do it. They attack that pawn, they take it. I decide to push. I want to really infiltrate this position. And they end up trading off a little bit. I'm trying to bring more pawns into this position. Get everything in here. Just try to and want these bishops and the queen in long diagonals so you can see more. They're trying to push forward, make it an attack going on my queen side. I attack them, they attack me, or they defend, and I'm going for a pawn charge. I'm trying to get this position open. And they do a good job of defending against this, as you will see soon, and they end up forking this, which isn't great for me. But it's not that bad because of the bishop, but they do end up getting the queen in here, which is they have infiltrated the position officially. And this is an example of you can also infiltrate a position like this. You don't have to infiltrate the position with pawns. It just pawns help you, and they're easier to infiltrate positions with. So I go for the pawn charge. I am trying to get this open, and then immediately try to get my bishop out and try to get my queen in for the check. Just threaten a couple things. They play the great defense. Very simple. G6, it's simple. I can't do anything about it. It closes down the position. I don't have anything here. My next move is trying to bring the bishop in, and I'm trying to get onto this square because this is a very important square. He's able to open up the position. What I didn't see, is started murdering my pawns. So they go in, take that one. I move away. And what they end up doing is they are trying to push their pawn. They're trying to promote, I bet. Or they're just doing a pawn charge, but I think they were trying to promote. So they're pushing their pawn. I'm attacking their queen. Their queen runs back, and I do this. This is a straight sacrifice of a pawn. It is dumb. This is an unnecessary sacrifice. Earlier in the video, you saw a good sacrifice, who was sacrificing it to open up some checks. This is a bad sacrifice. This is a screw up, because what it allows is, that. It just straight off kicks my bishop. Because I can't do anything. I can't take back, because if I take back, I just lose more. I lose more material. So, what I was hoping they'd do is I was hoping they take with the g-pawn, because that just opens it up. It's great for me. But they don't. They're smart. They take with the e-pawn. I have to run back. The queen comes in. I go attack the queen. The queen goes to defend, to pin my bishop, creating some threats. And I go and I'm trying to, I don't even know what I'm trying to do. I'm maybe trying to, do that, just defend some stuff. They go and they're doing their pawn charge. They are trying to push this pawn, maybe get a promotion or something like that. I counter. I'm just taking this pawn because that's a threat. And if I can get in here, if I could do that, they'll think that I'm attacking their bishop. But my real attack is always that, because these pawns, though they are, defended or blocked, they still have an attack. They still control this. And this is why pawn charges are important. Even people who can defend well against pawn charges can't do it well enough most of the time to stop an attack, because this king is trapped now. It has these two squares. It cannot run away. And that's a great thing about pawn charges. And there's no way for the pawns to open it up for him, because it's just a straight loss of a pawn. It's a very difficult position to be in. So what they end up doing is they're trying to push a pawn. I go attack the queen. The queen runs away. I attack the queen again. The queen runs away again. I do this. Threat is always this. And I don't think they see it. They go to defend the bishop that looks like it's under attack. I go here. Maybe they think I'm trying to take their rook or something. And they go and blunder that. It's made in two now. And because these pawns are stationed here, you're defending all this and are attacking all that, it allows for this checkmate. So that's one of the reasons why pawn charges are so important. Even if it gets locked down, pawn charges are still very good. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned something today.